And that's why the Model 1873 is still popular to this day.
Good evening, cowboys, cowgirls, and outlaws. Welcome to the Slick Sixguns Network. I'm your host, Slick Sixguns, and I'm here to provide education, tips, and community for those interested in the Western shooting sports. If you're interested in stuff like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notifications bell so you don't miss anything. Also in the description section is a link to our Patreon account if you feel like supporting us. Now let's pack our wagons and see what's being discovered out west.
The Winchester Model 1873 can trace its lineage of repeating firepower back to the Volition repeating rifle and later Jennings rifle. However, we can thank Benjamin Tyler Henry's patent of 1860 Henry rifle for its reality. That rifle would be used in the Civil War and be purchased for federal forces in small numbers by the government and by individual soldiers that would help prove its effectiveness on the battlefield. Fast forward to the year 1866 and the production of the first official Winchester rifle, known as the Improved Henry, which featured a brass frame rifle with a side loading gate and wooden handguard under the barrel that still fired the .44 Henry rimfire cartridge of the day. In 1873, Winchester introduced its Model 1873, which had a couple important improvements that made it superior to its predecessors, even though it still had the toggling action design still in use. It is the first rifle of the Winchester model line to be designated with a model and year as opposed to previous models, and it was the first Winchester model to utilize a centerfire cartridge. Even though Winchester created the .44 centerfire cartridge that the 1873 used, we can thank Benjamin Houllier, a French gunsmith who in the 1840s patented cartridges that were both rimfire and centerfire to be made using brass and copper casings. The 1873 had removable side plates for ease of cleaning. It introduced a new lever safety to prevent out-of-battery discharges. It came with an iron frame and later steel frame that made the rifle lighter and stronger, but kept the brass carrier to keep it from rusting due to the fouling caused by black powder. Finally, it had a dust cover on the top of the receiver so that the rifle could function in all environments. Originally offered in the .44 WCF or the .44-40, it was offered in several different calibers such as 38 WCF, 32 WCF, and 22. This was the first real Winchester model to feature an iron receiver aside from the few iron frame Henrys that came out in the 1860s. Around 1884, steel receivers were made. The rifle came in three different variants: a rifle in 24 inches, a carbine in 20 inches, and a musket in 30 inches. It came in three models over its period of development, featuring a slight change in the dust cover and receiver each time. The first model featured what is sometimes called a mortise dust cover, which is held in place by guides on either side of the dust cover. The second model features a second guide rail that was held in place by screws, and the third has a guide rail machined into the receiver. Three particular things made the Model 1873 extremely popular aside from its obvious improvements. First was that the rifle was customizable to meet the specific needs of the shooter, with several different barrel lengths and designs, calibers, stock styles from the wood to the butt plate could be changed as well, and the offer of engraving and other embellishments. Second, the ammunition was centerfire and could be reloaded using a reload kit that could be bought with the rifle if the buyer so desired. Third, the ammunition it fired would eventually be offered in Colt's iconic 1873 revolver, allowing a single person to carry one type of ammunition for both firearms. The concept of using two different types of firearms that used the same type of ammunition was not a new concept, but it was the first time that this concept would be successful, as Colt and Winchester tried to do this with the Winchester Improved Henry and the Colt Open Top less than a decade earlier. The 1873 was never formally adopted into the military arsenal for several reasons that require its own video. However, in 1876, during the Battle of the Little Bighorn, The repeating rifle, which the model 1873 was thought to be present, a number of warriors that faced Custer allowed them to annihilate the 7th Cavalry. It was used by outlaw and lawmen alike on the frontier, along with several other Winchester models that would come in the near future. One of the interesting things about the Winchester 1873 is the marketing of several rifles marked as 1 of 1,000 and 1 of 100. The story goes that Winchester would test fire the barrels of the rifles and correspond their accuracy with the number of targets that were used in the testing. Those that were of excellent accuracy would be given the designation of 1 of 1,000, and the rifles of lesser accuracy but still performing well would receive the designation of 1 of 100. Each rifle that was 1 of 1,000 would be finally embellished with engraving at the muzzle and breech of the barrel, and have platinum inlaid rings at either end, and were labeled 1 of 1,000 on the barrel. These rifles were sold for $100, while the 1 of 100 models were sold for roughly half the price. These rifles, even though expensive, were still affordable and highly desired. However, this marketing was unsuccessful as people desired the 1 of 1,000 and 1 of 100 rifles, as the standard 1873s were seen as inferior in looks and accuracy. As a result, the specialty series was discontinued, and only 136 of the 1 of 1,000 series rifles were produced, and only 8 of the 1 of 100s were produced as well. The model 1873 was discontinued in 1919 after 720,000 of them were made. Due to its high production rate, popularity, and duration of production, it was dubbed in circa the first half of the 20th century as the gun that won the West. This phrase, however, is highly contested among several different firearms, and the era of Western settlement and expansion had been over for decades when it was supposedly coined. The rifle gained so much popularity that it even had its own movie in 1950 known as Winchester 73, featuring James Stewart. In 1959, Aldo Uberti started making reproduction of cap and ball revolvers, and with the sport of cowboy action making a rise in the 80s and 90s, the need for a replica of a slick shooting lever gun came in demand. Uberti began making their 1873 rifle line to mirror the originals as best they could, and although there's much argument as to their quality compared to the originals, they came in both original calibers and were also chambered in .45 Colt and the later developed .357 Magnum, which could also shoot .38 Special as well. Winchester Repeating Arms began reproducing its model 1873 in 2013, and to this day maintains the same action with some improvements and modifications from the original, such as being able to shoot .45 Colt ammunition. It is popular with collectors and Western competitive shooters alike, as it and other replicas like it are one of the most popular models found in the sport of cowboy action shooting.